Whew, I gotta be honest with you guys, I really love this new Lowrider ST that just came out. And I know I said I would never trade my Sportster in, but Alright everybody, what is going on? As always, thanks for stopping by to another video today. It's Eric here at the Moto Jawn, and today I'm looking for a little insight and a little advice from you guys today. So, as you know, Harley has just released their Lowrider ST, their kind of sport touring model or sport touring version of the Lowrider S. And I've got to be honest, I really like this bike. I've always been a fan of the Lowrider S. But what they've done to this ST version of this bike, I know everybody kind of has their own opinions and their own little take on this. I'm going to be honest, my take is I love this thing. I love this thing from the look to the performance to the hard case bags, the 117, the fairing. I love the digital gauge on there. I'm a huge fan of everything that they have done with this bike right now. And obviously a lot of that, the looks, the bags, all that stuff is subjective to everybody's own opinion. And this is just me. I'm really loving this bike so far, this Lowrider ST, from everything that we've seen from pictures and video. Huge fan of what they've done with this bike and this option. I really think everything from the functionality of this bike to the looks of this bike, the 117 motor, all of that stuff, I think Harley actually did a really good job kind of bringing that throwback 80s style look to this newer softail model with the Lowrider S. And also, honestly, I think they did a fairly decent job with the price point as well, with the bike coming in somewhere around $21,700. I think they kind of nailed the price point. I was skeptical at first when we heard that this bike was coming out, thinking possibly that it was going to be in like the mid 20,000s or high 20,000s or something like that. It's Harley. Who knows what they're going to do when they start adding all these parts on there, but it's coming in around that 21,700 mark, and I think that's pretty reasonably priced for what they've done with the model here. So obviously for me, if you guys have been tuning in lately, if you guys have been kind of following my journey a little bit, a lot recently within the past few months or so, you've probably heard me say a lot about new options for bikes this year, personally for me, myself. So it's no secret, it's no surprise that I've said many times on here that I am potentially in the market for a new bike this year. And again, of course, everybody that's been tuning in for a while, you guys hear me say the one bike all the time that I'm super interested in, and that bike is the Street Bob. So last year when Harley came out with the 114 in there, I was even more interested in it at that time. And now as things have kind of progressed to this year, still got the 114, some different changes. I don't know, I kind of like the spoke wheel a little bit better on the Street Bob, but I still have my eye on the Street Bob. But this new Lowrider ST that has come out has definitely kind of shifted my mindset here. And like I said, those of you that have been tuning in for a while now, you hear me talk about the Street Bob all the time. I love the softail Street Bob, love the look of it, the design, everything about it. I'm a huge fan of it. And that was definitely one of the options that I've been considering on the table this year as I start to consider some new bikes to potentially look at this year. But as the Lowrider ST has come along, that, like I said, has definitely shifted my mindset, and I definitely have to take a serious look at this bike now. And from what I've heard, it could be kind of hard to get. I'm sure supply is going to be limited. I'm sure there will kind of probably be some increased surcharges with supply and demand. Everybody's going to be looking for this bike this year. But I'm kind of torn between the two now, considering the Street Bob and the Lowrider ST that has come out. And the next piece of this, again, if you guys have been tuning in for a while, I made a video a while back now, many months back, saying I would never trade in my Harley Sportster for any reason whatsoever. And there's a few points as to why I mentioned that in that video. Some of those at a high level, I basically said, you know, it's a great bike for me around town. It's perfect in the city of Philadelphia. Also, when you consider having the Sportster always with you, you know, in your garage, in your stable, it's a great bike to always have around to tinker with, modifications, rip it down, tear it up. You can do so much different stuff with it. And then another reason that I said I never really wanted to trade my Sportster in is because it can always serve as that great bike to hand down to, you know, like a child if they want to learn to ride, or a family member that wants to learn to ride. Having that Sportster always around is always good for those options that I mentioned there. And that's why in that video, I mentioned I never want to trade in my Sportster for those reasons. And it's funny because a lot of you remember that video actually, because anytime I start to talk about new bikes or considering getting new bikes and stuff and maybe trading the Sportster in, it's funny because you guys call me out in there all the time, whether it's on Instagram or down in the comments of the YouTube videos. You say, hey, you know, you said you were never going to trade this in. And that still is the case, but this new Lowrider ST, I tell you what, is definitely starting to test that mindset that I have of not trading in the Sportster. So let me explain here for just a minute. Through all those times of not considering trading in the Sportster whatsoever, I was always looking at the Street Bob, always thinking the Street Bob was gonna be that next bike. And with that price point of a new one coming in somewhere around, I'll just call it 15K for round number's sake, I really didn't think I would have to trade in the Sportster at that point in time. You know, you kind of manage your finances, you look around, see what you can afford, see what you can do. I really don't think if I go the route of a Street Bob that I would have to trade in the Sportster whatsoever. Obviously, because it's got that little bit of a lower price point, and then even if I went a year or two back to a used one, could get even a little bit of a lower price than what MSRP is on some of the new ones. But now, when we start to consider this Lowrider ST coming in somewhere around 21,500, 21,700, whatever it is, that price point kind of pushes up past just a little bit farther than what we're looking at with the Street Bob, obviously. So then that's where you start to think trading in the Sportster would then give you that nice big chunk of a down payment to put towards the Lowrider ST. So that's kind of weighing those options there of what I'm considering now at this point with the ST that has come out is, would I have to trade in the Sportster if I was gonna go that route? Or do I stick to a potential original plan of going with the Street Bob? So that's kind of what I'm torn right now. And that's what I'm curious to some insight from what everybody else has out there. What do you guys think of kind of that proposed couple options there? Keep the Sportster and go with a Street Bob, possibly have to trade in the Sportster and go with a Lowrider ST. Drop it down in your comments what you think that would be like or what you think of that kind of idea right there. And if any of you have any insight with these bikes yet or trading in, let me know what your thought process was going into getting a new bike or upgrading to a different bike. Did you trade in your current one? Let me know. I'm curious to see what everybody's thoughts and insights are on there with what I'm going through right now. So obviously my end goal here in the short term, if I do go to get another bike this year, would be to obviously keep the Sportster, no doubt. That's definitely gonna be what I'm gonna try to work towards, is try to keep the Iron 1200 and then get another bike on top of that, whether it's Street Bob or Lowrider ST. But like I said, the Lowrider ST is gonna make that a little bit more difficult with that price point. So what I'm considering here, and what I've always thought with a Street Bob, for example, is what I would do with a Street Bob is, you know, a lot of the modifications that you typically see. I love the hard case bags from the Sport Glide that are now on the Lowrider ST. I've always wanted to take a Street Bob, put those hard cased bags on there on a Street Bob, and then of course, you know, some of the traveling that I do, I would want a fairing on there as well. Of course, I'd probably go with Memphis Shades. They make the best stuff out there as far as fairings go. I'd probably throw a Road Warrior on the front. So when we think of those modifications there, that of course is going to increase the price a little bit. If you think of, like I said, for round numbers, call it 15K for a Street Bob, probably going to be another 1K for those hard case bags. Then the Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing. You're looking at a windshield piece for it, you're looking at the mounting brackets, and then you're looking at the actual cowl piece that goes across the fairing as well. There you're looking at another $300-400 or so. So really, I mean, that puts you around, you know, call it 17K for round numbers again, call it 17K that you're going to have into the Street Bob, still compared to that MSRP of the Lowrider ST of 21,700. So either way, the Street Bob is still going to potentially most likely be that cheaper option, even with those modifications that I would throw into that bike to kind of turn it into my own little mini bagger convertible version of a Street Bob as compared to the Lowrider ST. So then when we look more specifically at the Lowrider ST, we're looking at, like I said, for round numbers, just call it MSRP, 21,700 some odd dollars. Again, I know there's gonna be tax, title, fee, docking, that's probably gonna elevate the price. There's gonna be some inflation in there with these dealers. We know prices are kind of crazy right now. So then you're looking at another, call it 5 to 6 grand, or maybe even 7 grand on top of the Street Bob. And so when I think about this, obviously that's a little bit more money. That starts to stretch outside of the intended price range that I was looking at before, but I do love that bike, man, so we'll see how it plays out. But what I'm thinking here is trading in the Sportster could potentially be a good idea in that route, because my bike right now, I'm assuming I would get somewhere around $7,000 to $8,000 for that bike. Maybe, I mean, $7,000 at the least, I'm assuming right now for the Iron 1200 that I have. So that would be a great chunk of change to put towards the Lowrider ST being at that higher price point. But like I said, the Street Bob being at that little bit of a lower price point, even with some of the mods that I want to do it, still kind of comes in at that little more price-friendly price point. And I don't think I would have to trade in the Sportster with that one. Like I said, Harley's making this decision very, very difficult right now, coming out with the Lowrider ST. I love the look of this bike. I love the functionality, like I said, to the bags, to the fairing. This bike is going to do literally everything that I want it to do as far as being able to go on long trips, medium trips, weekend trips. The only thing that I would consider with that bike, though, being that the bags are kind of sticking out on the side like that, of course it's got those hard case bags, a little bit of a bigger fairing. Squeezing through some of this city traffic sometimes could be a little bit difficult considering the width of that bike with the fairing and bags. It's not going to be quite as easy as with the Sportster. So that is one thing that I'm considering. That's why, like I said, I always want to have that Sportster with me, but we'll have to kind of continue to see how it plays out. If it could potentially get traded in on a Lowrider ST, I don't know. This is what I'm really kind of juggling with right now. I know I said I was never going to trade it in, but those thoughts are starting to creep into my head now with this new Lowrider ST that has come out. Another reason that I like this Lowrider ST so much is because I honestly view this as something that could be an end game bike for me. This really could be an end game bike for me because as of right now, at this point in time, I don't really... How do I put it? It's not that I don't like the big traditional touring baggers, with the big fairing, the street glides, the road glides, things like that. But there's just something about the stance and kind of that engine being in the 117, being in the Lowrider ST, being a little bit lighter than those baggers. I know that I'm going to be able to take this bike literally anywhere. You could travel across the country on this thing. Like I said, I've already traveled all over the place on my Sportster. If you could do it on a Sportster, you can literally do it on anything at that point in time. And if I were to be able to get a Lowrider ST, bags, and FXRT fairing style bike, I honestly don't know even at what point in time I would need to go up into the grand touring options like a road glide or a street glide, because really that bike is going to serve every purpose. Even though it's a Softail, you say, yeah, it's not on a touring frame, you're still going to take that thing anywhere you want to go. Softail frame, that's going to handle fine on the highway, the back roads. It's going to be good enough around the city. Even though it is a little bit bigger, you're just going to have to maneuver that a little bit differently around the city. But that could literally almost be an end game bike for me for years and years. Now, I'm sure maybe later on down the road, I would want to get into a touring chassis, the Great American Touring lineup with a road glide or a street glide eventually. But I would say for many, many years, if I were to go the Lowrider ST option, I gotta be honest, that could be like an end game bike for me right now. I would have that thing for a very, very long time before I would even consider having to get a bagger at that point, because that would serve all of the functions that I think I would want it for. I don't know, I just love the Street Bob so much. I'm just so conflicted right now. Now, one thing I will say is obviously I still need to check these bikes out in the dealers. I need to sit on them, need to test ride them, things like that. That's obviously a few weeks away. We're in the middle of winter right now in the northeastern part of the state, so it's hard to tell. I could hop on these bikes and hate them for all I know, but all I know is I do know that I do like the look of them right now. So the true test will really come when I can throw a leg over those, hop on, get them on the road, take them for a spin, and really kind of get the full experience. Like I said, maybe I end up not liking either of them, like one better than the other. Who knows? But right now, that's kind of where I'm sitting at with kind of this decision. If I go with a Street Bob route, I'm pretty sure I can keep the Sportster, no problem. If I were to consider the Lowrider ST, it'd be kind of hard not to have to trade in the Sportster to get that little extra bump with the finances. So, like I said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Let me know some of your insights on whether trading in, if you think it's a good idea, if you think it's a bad idea, if I should 100% keep the Sportster. I would love to. I want to. That is the plan, but we're going to have to see how it plays out over the next couple months into spring and summer or so. So, I know I said in that video I would never trade my Sportster in, but those thoughts are starting to creep into my head now. So, like I said, let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Should I trade it in? Should I look at the Street Bob, Lowrider ST? Those are definitely kind of two of the front runners right now. The Street Bob has been forever. The Lowrider ST has my eye right now. So, Like I said, drop it down in the comments. Let me know what you think. Are you guys planning on doing any trades this year? Are you planning on getting any new bikes? Drop it down in the comments how you plan to go with those if you do. So of course, I think that is gonna wrap it up for now, talking a little bit about my trading experiences and how we're gonna go in the future. So stay tuned and we'll see how it ends up. But as always, make sure you ride safe out there. Make it a good one, guys. It's the Moto Jawn. We'll see y'all on down the road.